Good morning and good afternoon. Thank you everyone for joining Electrosonic's latest webinar, Creating Memorable Briefing Center Experiences in a Post-Pandemic World. We're now at the top of the hour, so we'll go ahead and get started with today's presentation. But first, there are a few housekeeping items I'd like to go over. Today's presentation is expected to take about 45 minutes, but if you get disconnected or experience technical difficulties, you can catch a replay of today's events later at electrosonic.com. If you see something during the webinar that sparks your interest, don't worry. We'll be sending over a copy of today's slides and a recording of the presentation within 24 hours. By default, your line is muted, but we encourage you to interact with the speakers by using the Q&A panel at the bottom of your screen. You can send in your questions, and at any time, our fantastic speakers will address them at the end of the presentation. We know your time is valuable, and we thank you for being with us here today. That being said, let's go ahead and get started. So hi, everybody. My name is Alex Han, and I'll be your moderator for today. I'm joined by my colleague, John Kolesar, Experiential Technology Advisor at Electrosonic. John is no stranger to the world of experience centers. He has created immersive guest experiences and briefing centers for over 15 years prior to joining Electrosonic. 9 of those years spent working at the McKesson Vision Center, managing their briefing center. Hey, John, it's great to have you on today.
Hi, Alex. Great to be here, and thank you very much for hosting.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. We're also joined today by Yiannis Cabolis, Electrosonic's Director of Technology Innovation. Yiannis is responsible for connecting our various departments and divisions around technical solutions. Yiannis monitors developing technologies, maintains awareness of best practices, and drives research and development right here at Electrosonic. Hi, Yiannis. Thanks for being here with us.
Thank you for having me, Alex. It's great to be here.
We're excited to learn from you today. So some of you may know who Electrosonic is and what we do, but for those unfamiliar, let's set the stage. For more than 57 years, Electrosonic has designed, built, and supported innovative technology solutions that create memorable experiences where people live, work, and play. Electrosonic draws on global resources with local offices in 3 continents and 15 cities, and an ecosystem of accredited partners worldwide to help you push the boundaries of technology to unleash the power of human experience. Yiannis, John, we're all excited to listen into your thoughts, so let's go ahead and get started. John, would you like to take the lead?
Sure, I'd love to. Thank you. As you know, Alex and everyone, it's been a challenging year. The world has changed significantly for everyone. I don't think anyone on the earth has been unaffected by this virus. We have a literal roller coaster of emotions every week, some good news, some bad news. The main thing is that almost all in-person events are on hold worldwide, which is obviously a huge impact for the EPC community. Well, I have some good news. I was at the ABPM last week, and the numbers you see here are from the July conference, so not too long ago. But some things are changing. What I've noticed last week is that the world is reopening, which is good news. European centers are reopening now, as long as they're hosting visitors from non-hotspot countries. The US, a number of centers told me that they're planning their dates, some last week, some this week, some early December. And they're have to kind of ping pong of their dates because of virus changes and loads in certain areas, but everyone's moving forward with a plan. What has come out of this is that, it's happening and it needs to happen because everybody wants to have their center open. 90% of salespeople still said they want to open their center and be in person. Hybrid is happening, but 90% of the salespeople really want that impactful in-person experience that you can't quite replicate in person. So how do you make those magic moments? How do you create the wow enough to entice someone to come back to your center when they might not feel safe? Well, first of all, you want to make them feel safe with technology, but you also want to make them have a really good experience, that something they've never seen before, and keep them coming back. Here's a quote from a company that needs no introduction, but they understand the magic. They know how to keep people happy and keep them coming back again. Electrosonic's happy to be a 40-year partner of Disney. We've worked and learned alongside them to provide amazing experiences and do it safely all along the way. So I'd like you to picture the best experience you've had recently or ever. Maybe it was an executive briefing center or a theme park, a museum, a themed restaurant or retail establishment. What made it magic to you? What made you want to come back? What made it special? I'm guessing there was a decent amount of seamless technology. There was something behind the scenes you didn't see that really wowed you, that really made you think this is special. This is made just for me. Well, how does that happen? It doesn't happen easily. The best way is starting in the beginning with the design stage. Electrosonic does design, build, and support. We do all of those well. But if you start in the beginning, let people understand us and your partners know what your design is, we're going to be able to make that dream happen easily. Build, we've got that easily under control. We built the world's largest indoor theme park in the Middle East. And for support, support's extremely important right now because you can have robust, automatic 24-hour support on your sites that is never going to get sick and not catch COVID. And let's face it, with reduced staffing, this is really an issue going forward that we should all consider. So connection, we talk about making a connection, whether it's, before someone arrives at the airport, at the parking lot, personalized greetings, making them feel welcome, curated custom agendas so they know that this day is planned for them, but also building in flexibility. Timing in case planes are late or delayed. Maybe you need to change the content because something's happened. Maybe you need to change the system or the systems for the day after work because someone has a BYOD device. Having that flexibility is very important in a briefing center or in any immersive environment. And you have to kind of think of always having a plan B and now a plan C. In the briefing center world, all programs, there are many programs, have 3 tracks. They want the in-person to happen. They know now, right now, our main option is the virtual and the hybrid. The hybrid is going to be huge going forward, and it's nothing to be afraid of. We've all done it. We've all had hybrid briefings for years, whether it's an executive that can't make it the last minute, a SME that's calling, dialing in from somewhere else around the world, or someone that just can't attend that meeting because they're in somewhere else. So we've done it. Now it's just time to elevate it to the next level because the rules have changed. We truly feel you need to free up your staff to make your brand connect to the environment, to your guests. Whether it's a briefing center that wants to bring the feel of outdoors inside so you feel connected to the brand, or it's a briefing center or a visitor center or corporate headquarters where you want to excite your visitors as much as your guests and really make them understand who your company is. Possibly it's a giant spectacle that we do a lot of these. We do the large MGI Katai Hotel where there's large immersive guest interactions. This also could be a large corporate campus as well. First impressions are everything. So here at the Experience Center, having a very grand, customizable lobby experience. So when your guests arrive, they feel welcome. Maybe it's something on the outside of the building to make the guests see you while they're arriving, make them feel welcome, and have the public enjoy the beauty and raise, an inquiry about what your business is. Maybe it's a preview center for season ticket sales, where you want your guests to look, see, feel, and hear what it would be like to sit in the actual seats so they would know what they're getting into for a year-long purchase. Maybe it's a corporate showroom where you want the guests to touch the brand, to interact with it, to feel it and understand it. When you can have a guest help drive the experience, they're going to remember it better. Just like when you drive a car to a location, you remember it better than being a passenger. Having the broadcast ability, and a lot of people are using the word broadcast right now in many ways, but broadcasting your message to the general public via town hall, to your employees, to a captive audience in your very immersive center. Using your center that has these tools, make them a little more flexible so you can get that message out there to a wider audience, especially now since some of your audience will not be visiting you in person. For innovation, show that you can design your center and their experience around innovation and around your brand. So when people experience it, they understand and feel what it's like to experience your brand as a user. Maybe you're simply trying to get a big splash, a big immersive public spacing experience where you want them to, draw your guests in and have them consume your product, whether it's a physical donut, a tech product, or a service. That's all about is that retention or that attraction. This screen here, I think, I don't think there's many logos on here you won't recognize. And I think you'll see that these are all clients that expect and demand flawless execution of their technology because they want happy return guests. These are companies we've worked with alongside, and we're very proud to have them as our partners. And their goal is to help you understand their company when you visit. We want you to understand that is what we help provide that magic can do, because that is really what it is connection to your brand. So when you're talking about reaching people, the reach of an EBC, it might be to reach a client, a new client. It might be to reach an existing client. It might be a lot harder for both during COVID. You might want to reach your internal audience more strongly than you've been able to. That's all done from an EBC, or can be from an EBC, if we look at them as a broadcast center, if you will. The next two stages of engaging, you want the guest experience to be elevated with technology. You want them to have some wow factor, something that they've never seen before, something impressive and magic. Have some high points and some really strong endpoints, but have some peaks and valleys. Have some time where the interactive stage can go in. Give them a break for half an hour. Let your clients roam the showroom without you there, so they can really look at the back of it, look at, touch, feel the screens, experience it, see how they interact, and see how you might want to change that experience. And then you got them to play a little bit. Hopefully that will lead to retaining. If you're allowing them to play with your brand, they're going to understand it a bit more. Gamification is a bit real, and retention of a deal or a new client or an existing customer is really what it's all about. So the retention is really where you can drive that experience home. One thing we also think is very important is freeing up your staff so they have that human connection. Technology is great, but you're really only going to have the best people make the best connection with your clients if you put the best people there. So let them have some seamless technology that just runs automatically. They don't have to think about it. They can focus on your brand and the experience for your clients. So on that note, I'm actually going to turn this over to Yiannis, who can explain a little bit better about some of these specific technologies and how Electrosonic puts them into play with our clients. Yiannis?
Thank you, John. I would like to focus on the three phases of a visitor's journey, starting with the reach phase. We believe that there is no such thing as too early for a visitor to be engaged. Most of your visitors and clients will utilize your website, and that will be their first exposure to your brand. We want to be informative as we start building our relationships, which should be looked upon as a journey with storytelling to promote and identify the points of interest. The best way would be to offer a specialized app where one could register, create a profile, identify areas of interest, get previews, schedule their visit, and get informed of the current health and safety measures at your site. For your side, Web 3.0 is the best way to do that, since it allows read or write interactivity. For those that do not want to download an app, perhaps using the camera on their phone and read a QR code will take a potential visitor to a secure site where one could create their profile and go through the registration and scheduling process. We aim to inspire visitors and to start building trust. If time permits, they could be mailed a care package where it could contain a branded cardboard or plastic VR headset and use their phone to get exposure to some teasers and start their experience remotely. Through the app or secure site, they would also get an electronic ticket, that's like a token or a QR code, that welcomes the visitors and becomes their digital credential to access the parking, enter the site, collect virtual assets, and while they're spending time through the exhibits. Accessibility information for ADA, visually impaired, mobility guide, and request for an interpreter could also be arranged through the app. And it is very important, though, to remember that all the above ties to personalization and gamification, which starts with exclusive information from before you even arrive to your premises. So we move on to the engage phase, which is phase 2. We're now at your site. And what we need to keep in mind is that technology evolves in leaps, not in consistent steps. We are at a point where technology needs to assist with delivering experiences. As our industry further integrates with adjacent segments, we're at the point where we can no longer talk about integration of boxes, but instead convergence and integration of technology platforms. How, you might ask? Technology master planning. That's what, where, and how technology will be deployed. Its topology, the communication protocols, is along with infrastructure, the foundation of the information and communication technology, what we call ICT, or the security, surveillance, and access control, which we call SSA, and the audio visual controls and acoustics that will deliver the experiential design core technologies at your facility. Note that what we cover is required not only to serve the exhibition and show side of an executive briefing center, but provides the technology touch points for the facility operation team, employee and guest well-being, and it's the backbone that will elevate the experience level for both guests and employees. There are always ways that we can elevate experiences, and to truly be successful, technology should be invisible. How we tie to the BMS, the building management system, for example, how we tie to the smart parking services, the dynamic and personalized digital signage, various other options of technology, they all provide an extremely important part of how our guests are going to be wide through the exhibition storytelling. So some of these technology examples I will get to in the slides that follow. But the pandemic has created new operational demands. So we might have to consider things like on-site touchless registration for those that have not done so via the website or app, screening booths with various levels of sophistication, virtualized receptionists and information desks on demand, various options for interactivity beyond the touch part, unique media delivery systems, interface with HVAC and lighting systems, cloud-based solutions for content delivery, mixed reality, collection of assets and optimization of media based on viewer location and proximity using more exotic technology such as layering vision-based capabilities on your existing CCTV system. That's computer vision, or utilize LiDARs. That's a light detection via and ranging, which is extremely accurate and in fact is used by Tesla vehicles. The third phase is the retain phase. And if we have done well during the reach and engage phases, then we have an extremely good chance that our retain phase will be as successful. Obviously, the app or link to the profile via a QR code will help tremendously with data acquisition of meaningful information around the level of engagement we delivered. Additionally, we could get quantitative data directly from the visitors, which in turn can lead to follow-ups, invitations, specialized events, whether they're in person or online, memberships, and options to join exclusive social media groups, blogs, etc. Again, I need to stress that ICT, as I mentioned earlier, technology master planning, and remote access via the website and preferably the app are key factors as they integrate technology platforms, functionality, and subsystem intelligence to drive the user experience at higher levels. Upon arrival, the guest experience begins with the automated smart parking, where a trigger can be via proximity, but preferably through the QR code from the phone. And that will tell us that you are actually there. And then we want you to join and connect to the managed Wi-Fi system, which we provide. We can start collecting data about behavior using computer vision, for example. Computer vision can be part of a security surveillance and access control, and it can be deployed simply as a layer of image and pixel processing on top of your existing CCTV system. It can, however, do a lot more than just facial recognition as it integrates with other technology platforms. It is a great ally because it's of its ability to deliver facial recognition, object recognition, provide analytics about direction, uh, proximity, distancing, incorporate geofencing, and integrate with a BMS system, SO control, which we're going to talk more about later on, content management systems, security surveillance, access, and wellness protocols. We can identify, for example, your location and track your proximity to any iconic outdoor artifacts, pieces of art, nostalgia, items that tie to the brand's history located at your site. We can have dynamic and personalized digital signage on welcome displays on large LED media walls, on marquees that varies between guests, clients, or even employees, just from the data that has been acquired electronically. Triggers such as proximity sensors, ultrasonic rangefinders can also incorporate and provide simple procedural information for entering and directions of where you should be, where the information desk is, or where the restrooms are, on just fixed displays. But we're now ready to enter your building. And when we enter the building, the guests are now inside what we call the Executive Briefing Center engine. In the themed and location-based entertainment world, this becomes the ecosystem of experiential designed opportunities where our guest follows a well-choreographed storytelling journey. EBCs can capitalize on such techniques and technologies. In an attraction, we have a land with an overall theme that will be your visitor subject of focus. An attract screen at the queue line that could be information that immerses with messages your visitors are in need or we want to give to them. A pre-show that with the individual, for example, reader rails and displays with media explaining various items or artifacts that can be in display cases, photographs, memorabilia, hardware, etc. And a visitor engagement while they are in that queue line that could be in their BYOD, their smartphone device, with narrations, further information, interactives, and so forth. Maintaining that visitor engagement. All this needs to be coordinated, and we do that via real-time show control in terms of timing, throughput, integration of systems such as playback devices, subsystems such as lighting, sound effect selection, or the right media files to be loaded and ready to be played, or in case something goes wrong, a backup, an on-demand backup of a media player that is going to be told what file to load, even what frame to go to, in an autonomous way, and be patched to the display that's supposed to be, the content needs to be displayed at. We do, for example, other things to guarantee the level of experience. Projection studies, visual acuity analysis, lighting studies, heat maps of the audio distribution. And we do that by using software, creating virtual camera and guest positions. And we can even do a walkthrough in the and see if the design actually meets the intent, and even start making adjustments before we build what we need to deliver. Our experience and know-how tell us that this should not be just here's a manufacturer and here is their product, let's use it. It needs to be more than that. And we don't need to stop to just the virtual camera sets and studies. We can actually use a focus group approach and then use technology to quantitatively measure the level of engagement that the content, the layout of the exhibit, the ergonomics, and etc. offer, and then work with marketing and content creators so the messages and what needs to be seen and when by the viewer is properly tailored to drive that experience even harder. So the EBC engine needs to be viewed as a space where core platforms such as the building management system, the show control, and the IT coordinate all available endpoints, whether they're part of the security, the SSA, the audiovisual, the lighting, the HVAC, to orchestrate and personalize the guest experience. There are some core technologies which we need to identify a little bit further. I'll talk a little bit about the real-time show control because it's not your typical integrated control system. It's a software environment where computing control is time-bound and it's event-driven. And it can be either in a fixed or in a virtualized configuration. Real-time show control is commonly used in running campus-wide and individual attractions in theme entertainment venues. Many of you utilize AV control platforms with touch panels and third-party system triggers that execute events such as up and down lights, start media, etc. This is traditionally done by a programmer that writes a piece of code that gets compiled and uploaded into an environment, a control environment. And if you need to make any adjustments, you basically have to go and redo that whole sequence all over again, the programming, the compiling, the upload, and so forth. Real-time show control is not based on compiled code, and you can make changes, of course, only by authorized personnel, not just on the values, let's say volume up or down, but actually on the code lines, the sequence of events. So it can be deployed in a data center format with Corbon server blades with VMware so that multiple instances of the show control can run simultaneously. And they can even be in completely different physical locations, just as we do with the servers, IT does with the servers currently. Also, your control abilities is directly proportional to the computing capability of the clusters that you create. So the sizing can grow based on your demands. We have used virtualized show control in Warner Brothers in Abu Dhabi, just as John mentioned earlier, and which we designed and built as such at the MGM in Macau. You saw some slides about that earlier on. Tom Bradley International Terminal in LAX, various Universal Studio parades do use that. So your EBC can run simultaneously time-based synchronous and asynchronous timelines. So that's why this is very important as a tool. Then, of course, we have the health and security. And although you can install just some people counters and proximity sensors as an entry solution to really address various legislative mandates, computer vision is a lot more advanced and can deliver throughput analytics, flow, direction, proximity, social distancing, real-time alarms, behavioral KPIs, and then it can do, of course, contact tracing for health reasons, but also for security demands. Extensive high bandwidth managed networks are required, incorporation of local and far cloud services, an operations control center, distributed audio, video controls, remote I/O, etc. All are in the various areas extremely important so our guests get informed, educated, and wowed. So let's take a virtual walkthrough for unique experiential spaces and discover some other technology opportunities. The first space is an exhibit gallery. Imagine an area with a number of exhibit vignettes where the architecture and the interior design elements and finishes can be in such a way so they can host integrated audiovisual solutions where we want them to be close to our audience, or be able to hide them above the architectural or theatrical lighting and HVAC ducts where we want them out of sight. All aspects of the environment are monitored and operated by SO Control. And we provide interfaces via control panels, tablets, and smartphones. So hosts or docents can have overrides or individual control when it is required. Base building passive acoustic panels can maintain background noise level control, but we need to rely on active acoustical treatments and steerable beaming transducers to focus the sound corresponding to its exhibit in the optimum view area without the adjacent exhibits to audio to experience to be interfered. Lighting control beyond just its intensity, just as we do in theatrical spaces, where we can paint and complement media and artifacts with colors, textures, and even provide animations and effects on all surfaces, including the walls and the floors. Proximity sensors, ultrasonic range finders, beacons can be utilized to personalize the experience in terms of content delivery for content on demand playback, including preferred language, for example. Content can be different from visitors versus a client, and those sensors can actually help us deliver that. If we had deployed computer vision, a higher level of analytics can be collected. I like to call that curatorial data. And it can be combined with information of actual content viewed, how deep did they dig into an interactive, how much time they dwelt on a subject, and most importantly, were there any triggers that caused them to move on a different exhibit before the media file ended. That can be very powerful as a self-assessment and showmanship level. So you know if there are any points that need attention, such as challenges with the physical layout, the content, the throughput, or noise levels. While the visitors can optimize and personalize through their smartphones their experience and collect assets, we can also collect very valuable data. We move on to an immersive storytelling area. That's space number 2. This area differs from the exhibit gallery, as the layout, although appearing as a segmented canvas, may illustrate through mixed media presentation the evolution of your products, technology innovation, services offered, and expansion of your brand to new segments and markets in a sequential format. Remember that we have been talking about choreography of the experiences and deploy technology platforms which we have control and strategically break rules to create lasting memories by triggering the echoic, which is the sound portion, or the iconic, which is the image memory in our brains. That's what connects to a little piece that's called the amygdala. So we can therefore, as part of a time event, bring all these segment areas together, and maybe we fill those gaps, the segmentation, with translucent pieces of material, and we laminate LCD film on it. LCD film, when you apply current, creates a privacy glass. We've seen that utilized in boardrooms, for example. Or we can lower theatrical fabric scrims to create a more organic and ethereal look, and then use lighting to create and morph the area into a compound storytelling canvas. Docents or technical staff, depending on the audience, can present and provide commentary or even convert the space into a telepresent venue for presentations and meetings as required. The tricks we can do to produce an auditory force perspective, a stage, if you will, utilizing dynamic speaker time alignment and on the fly panning of one's voice as they go about the physical space. It's called the Haas effect, and it's actually something that has kept the human species survive, as it allows us to pinpoint sound direction. Uh, our brains are constantly measure the time arrival between our two eardrums, and that's that differential is what is called precedence and how we pinpoint direction of sound. Cleverly, this was used by Disney at Lion King Broadway show a few years back. So audience brains could locate the talent singing or speaking in a stage that was spilling throughout the seats, the rows, and the stage area during a performance. I used it before that for the reveal sequence of the Space Atlantis at Cape Canaveral in Florida. It is all very exciting, but it's not over yet because we do transition to a third space. We call that the flexible dynamic 360 space. You need to think of this area as a stage where sets can move and scenic can appear in any surface. What you see in this space is, for a lack of a better word, a digital canvas. Audio, video, lighting, control platforms are all integrated and designed to immerse the audience. Walls are digital wallpaper covered with fine pitch LED canvas. Three-dimensional objects are video mapped, and we even deploy what is called the wave field synthesis and 3D beaming technology, so we can deliver object-based steering to your audio capabilities, the soundtrack, the multi-sound effects or narrations. It's wave field synthesis is very powerful. It's a special audio rendering method that when it's combined with speaker arrays can actually accurately steer a beam in the XY coordinates. So two people, for example, sitting a meter or so apart, can listen to different content without any interference. We can use real-time tracking, black tracks, and allow of what appears whole displays on the various surfaces to be swiped up, down, left, right, different locations, things to be pinch zoomed during the presentation just with gesture, or organic shapes to be video mapped on the fly as they're being moved or rotated about their axis. It also helps us to create a pixel map canvas that encompasses all that volumetric space. So the pixel map matches regardless of whether the various surfaces have a different treatment. For example, projection versus LED display versus a fixed display and different resolutions. So this way things appear coherent and not as an afterthought. This is the space where we can take advantage of augmented, projected, and mixed reality that is customizable and personalized for multiple viewers. A space where a product launch could have as part of the presentation have the visitors being beamed in the middle of a hardware production floor, or let us take a peek behind the door of the R&D department, see how things get done, shrink us and inject us inside the bloodstream so we can observe nanorobots at work fighting cancer cells. Just a few examples. And although this space is more than capable of being used as the center of your company's leadership to reach out to employees, clients, and visitors, Our final space is more tailored for just that. We call it the Virtual and Hybrid Reality Broadcast Center. It is important in EBCs delivering live stream events to your teams, your clients, and your visitors. And traditionally, live stream events utilize green or blue screen backgrounds and the color keying filter effect to place static or animated backgrounds behind live presenters. As you see on the lower left-hand side, these are the challenges and drawbacks of using this type of setup. Advantages in technology have simplified the workflow and the setup that is required. So what you see on the right-hand side is the virtual and hybrid reality broadcasting setup, which comprises of an advanced media production server, a typical camera and sound capture setup, and strategically placed fine-pitch, high refresh rate LED displays, and of course, studio lighting. The digital 3D studio engine inside the server can produce whole 3D broadcast sets with live streaming backdrops of anything you can imagine, provide all the necessary production transitions you desire during product launches, events, distant communication, demonstration, storytelling, etc. In fact, live from the red carpet, years ago, we used to use whole broadcast vans along with a field crew, but it was replaced by a 5 RU. RU is rack units. Each one is 1.75 inches. So it has been replaced with an 8 3/4 tall server that does all that. We can use this broadcasting approach for streaming our media production or as a source for live events with either the immersive storytelling area or flexible dynamic 360 space, and wow our guests while continuously collecting data during the engage phase. In the last 20 or so minutes, I reviewed with you the reach, engage, and retain phase, providing you with some insights on core technologies that will help you elevate the experience level of your executive briefing center. We took the 3,000-foot level view of the EBC engine and got exposure to real-time show control as it orchestrates the operation and interoperability between all systems and subsystem nodes that are part of your extensive network of far-end devices or the far cloud. We also took a look at a virtual walkthrough of 4 spaces and looked at what ifs in terms of functionality, user experience, and so forth. As I leave you, I would like to mention for one more time that we have crossed the threshold of thinking technology innovation as just a box. We can dream and deliver more when we think in terms of platforming. Those are the technology platforms. John, perhaps you can provide us an overall summary with key points of our webinar and tie everything together around all the presented opportunities that exist.
Yes, Yiannis, thank you. I would, and thank you very much for your time. I always learn something new when I work with you, and it's amazing to think of all the possibilities that we can do to really elevate the experience. So hopefully what we've shown you is that, whatever kind of briefing center you run or wherever your program is, there are ways to elevate it. Obviously, we all need to focus on doing it safely right now, most important thing, but that every company is beginning to do it. It is the time to plan your reopening now. It's time to wipe the dust off the machines that haven't been open for 8 months. Turn them on, see if the system's working, see if you've developed new content, if you need new tools to make that content show up properly on your screens. It's time to make sure that we have, those interoperable platforms in place like you're talking about. So your CRM, you have to get data to know what clients are coming. You have, personal data about them there. Tie that into your CMS so that everything can show up properly, whether it's in the lobby, in the briefing center, in a conference room, or in the showroom. Make magic, make it something that they've not seen before. And like we've said, they will come back, they will be interested. and they want to know what you're doing as a company to move forward, because they're going to buy something from you. They want to see that you're forward thinking. And we like to think that we can help you be forward thinking and move in that direction. So thank you for your time today, everyone. At this point, I'm going to turn it back to Alex with a few closing thoughts and see if we have any questions.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Yiannis, for that insightful presentation. We have just a few minutes left, so I'd like to get right into some Q&A. I've seen a couple of questions come through during the presentation, so we can jump right into them. But if you have any questions for John or Yiannis, please type them in the Q&A section in the toolbar at the bottom of your screen, and we'll try our best to answer as many as possible. So the very first question we have is from Jennifer, who asks, so Yiannis, you've been talking about computer vision. How do you integrate that into an existing facility?
Right. So the first step is always to make sure that you have a site assessment done. That's because you need to make sure that all your CCTV setup is adequate. And then we need to have a conversation with you and understand the type of functionality that you are after. As we reviewed computer vision, I only mentioned just a fraction in the time that was available of the possibilities and the functionality that you can get out of such a system. So by first having this site assessment, it allows us to identify functionality and the visibility. And then we basically deploy a level of processing, which is again a host computer that sees every single feed of your CCTV system. And that's how it gets done.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Yiannis. So we have another question here from Stefan, who asks, can you elaborate on the technology platforms needed to run an effective briefing center?
I'll touch briefly on this. You need to make sure that, like I said, you have a CRM that can access the right data without doing it incorrectly, pulling out confidential data. You don't want to have someone's home address put up on a welcome screen. You want to make sure that your CMS can handle, and I say content management system, can handle multiple tracks, can handle multiple abilities of different tours. You might have 10 different tour types because you have 10 different verticals that you deal with. You also now have to have 3 different tracks, your physical, your virtual, and your hybrid. You need to be able to be flexible. You need to make sure that if you're reaching capacity in a room, if they invited 4 extra guests, that you're preparing for all that. You have proximity sensors that can say there's too many people in the room. So there are many different platforms, but those to me are the 2 most important. And there are many, many sub-platforms that tie into those. But as someone who's worked in briefing centers for 15 years, if either of these 2 base systems aren't in place, it's not going to work. You're not going to run the show because you have to get the data from somewhere. And you have to run the show to make that magic. And it does come from a base of these systems as well as others. Yiannis, would you like to add anything to that? You definitely are a little more technically able than I am. So.
Yeah, sure. I just wanted, I agree with your points. I just wanted to say that we touched on the show control aspect. This whole idea of when you go to a theme park or when you see an attraction, a show, how everything is in place, all that timing, all those resources, how they're being acquired and where they're being distributed is actually part of your show control, and then the infrastructure which is available to be able to handle just the sheer amount of data that needs to be pushed.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, John and Yiannis. Looks like we have time for one final question, and this one comes from Mark, who asks, what is the first step in updating my briefing center?
First step is honestly taking a look back and saying, what are you trying to do? When are you trying to open? Do you need to update your content? Security and safety now are paramount. Do you have some kind of, proximity sensor for a number of employees? Have you turned on your briefing center equipment in 8 months? Has it been sitting there gathering dust? There might be some basic cabling or updates that need to happen. Maybe your marketing department has come up with this amazing new virtual platform and virtual content that you can be sharing to your clients, during pandemic, but as we go back, maybe that won't work on your current setup. So maybe you have to have a different content management system to make it work. Maybe you need to change some of the physical setup in the center, or maybe the content needs to be adjusted. There are many things to look at, but holistically, I would say it's looking at how you can do it safely and effectively. And we know budgets are cut this year. We know a lot of the time people only have catering budgets right now, and they're trying to make virtual platforms out of catering budgets. There is a solution for every need out there. And that's what we feel we're specialized at, is finding the right fit for you. So, that assessment, we're happy to have an on-site assessment in any briefing center with any program to discuss where they are, where they'd like to be, and the steps we can use to get them there.
Thank you, John, and thank you for all of those great questions. Wrapping up here, I think it's obvious that the expectations of customers are only increasing, but it's exciting to see that technology is moving faster than ever to meet those expectations, to deliver memorable and immersive experiences that not only bring an element of magic, but engage at every step of the customer journey. So we're just about out of time here. So on behalf of our speakers and all of Electrosonic, I want to thank you all for being here with us today as we begin creating memorable briefing center experiences in a post-pandemic world. Following this webinar, we'll also be hosting a video-enabled workshop next month focused on the 5 golden rules of creating magical customer experiences. So look out for an invitation in your inbox. As a reminder, a copy of the slides and a recording of today's presentation will be sent within 24 hours after the event. Thank you everyone for joining, and have a great rest of your day.